President Obama at the Nuclear Security Summit at the Washington Convention Center, wrapping up this summit with world leaders. The main focus there about trying to keep nuclear material out of the hands of terrorists. But he answered a number of questions from reporters. We take every official presidential news conference in its entirety, and we took this one as well. Let's bring in our expanded panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. David Catanese, senior politics writer for U.S. World News and World Report. Cheryl Atkinson, anchor of Sinclair's Full Measure, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Okay, what did you hear out of there, Steve?
Well, I was sort of struck by the president's discussion of Iran and the Iran deal, where he said the Iranians are following the letter of the law, but acknowledged that the Iranians aren't following the spirit of the law, and gave two examples. One, ballistic missiles that they're firing, that they're testing with death to Israel written on them, and the second was shipping missiles to Hezbollah. And the president said, after he noted these two violations of the spirit of the deal, said, these make businesses nervous. And my thought when I heard that was, well, shouldn't they make all of us nervous? I mean, these are horrible things, but it goes to show how the president and the administration had decoupled Iran's behavior on nukes from everything else. I thought he just seemed a little nonchalant about that. The other thing that struck me is after he made those comments, he spoke at length about what the United States is doing to boost Iran's economy outside of the letter of the deal, which I thought was, again, pretty striking, giving Iran every benefit of the doubt at a conference supposedly dedicated to eliminating nuclear weapons.
You know, this was a Nuclear Security Summit press conference, but as in most things, Donald Trump's name was mentioned, and the president fielding again a question about what Donald Trump said this week, Dave.
Donald Trump is the question of the moment. It's the question on everyone's mind, and he didn't really hit Trump as hard as he has before in some of his previous comments. I also thought it was interesting that he wouldn't talk about who he voted for in the Democratic primary. I thought that was a savvy question to throw in there. But to look at this conference overall, I always look at what are the accomplishments of them. I mean, he's had a bunch of them now. Nuclear weapons are a priority. But I think, you know, he talked a little bit about China, a little about securing nuclear weapons. But without Russia there, I think it's hard to get any big breakthrough on anything. I mean, they snubbed him on the summit. They basically said, we're not going to go there. And, you know, with their involvement in Syria, they're obviously still a major player in all this.
And a major player in nuclear material, obviously, 80%. Cheryl.
Can I build on something Steve said? Because my reflections are similar, but I'd go a little further. I'm not an expert in this policy, so I'll speak for ordinary Americans. I'm a little bit confused. There's nothing wrong with hoping for the best, being pragmatic, but it seems to be a decoupling of Iran as a nuclear seeker and Iran as a terrorist state. Last time I looked, I didn't check today, but Iran was the largest state sponsor of terrorism, according to the State Department. And at the same time, we're encouraging business and rewarding them with dollars and patting them on the back in some respects. They remain, by all assessments from credible people, a large sponsor of people who are trying to kill us and our allies actively every day. And as an ordinary American, what's the strategy in the big picture beyond nukes when we're talking about global terrorism?
Charles.
I was happy to hear in listening the accomplishments of this conference the president say that the South Americans are securing their nuclear materials, because I've been up late nights unable to sleep thinking about the South American nuclear issue. Look, the president is operating in a world that just is detached from ours. What are the main items he's done in the last 6 months? The Paris Climate Change Conference. This conference, this is now the fourth, which has been a failure. The minute that the Russians didn't show up, it was a failure to start with. And the Cuba holiday. That's it. The world is on fire. We got Brussels, Paris, San Bernardino, all over the world. We have a rise of Islamic radicalism, and he is obsessed with these long-term utopian, as he said, transnational issues that, of course, ordinary people, meaning ordinary Americans, do not appreciate, because none of us have the vision and the wisdom that he has. I don't have any objection to this, but 3 days in which traffic was shut down in Washington is a high price to pay for securing South American nuclear materials.
Strong letter to follow. Next up, the presidential race and, of course, candidate casino. Plus, tonight, don't forget, we'll take a special look at the state of the U.S. military. Fox News reporting rising threats, shrinking military premieres, 10 p.m., re-airs over the weekend.